Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventures podcast on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett, and joining me today is Nick Martin, a hunter from here in Iowa and somebody that we've had on the program going back a couple years now. Nick, thanks for joining us again. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, Brent, other than a little chilly, doing pretty good. And I appreciate you having me back. Yeah, we've done this a few times and it's always a pleasure and good to catch up with you. So I appreciate you having me back on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to catch up, and you're not kidding. It's been brutally cold lately. I think where I'm at around the Pella area here in Iowa this morning, I think our wind chill was 20 below zero. Is that kind of what it's been like your way?
Yeah, it just brutal. And my job is half inside, half outside. So that outside part's been fun this week. But hey, 50 on Saturday, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're almost there. We're getting
That's Iowa.
51 day, minus 20 the minus
Yeah.
20 next. So it's just great stuff all around.
Oh no, isn't it?
Well, hey, we want to catch up with you and just kind of talk hunting, pheasant hunting, your turkey season last year, and kind of your whole season wrap up, I guess. But first, it's never a bad thing to kind of catch people up to speed on some of the work that you do, and online you got the nickname of the Iowa Bird Chaser on Instagram. I know that you have a website, and so might just tell the listeners a little bit about your mission and some of the things that you do when it comes to pheasant hunting.
Yeah, so I'm just a lifelong pheasant hunter, and about 5 years ago, I decided to set out on a mission to try to harvest a pheasant in every county in Iowa. So we have 99 counties, of course, and trying to do that exclusively on public land. So we officially hit over the halfway mark. I think we're at 53 of 99, 5 years in. So that's kind of the big focus. And then through that, we try to bring a lot of intel or education in regards to like conservation, good land practice, management type things of that nature. And just kind of overall, just trying to take in what the state has to offer, which we have a lot of great opportunities across the state, whether it's fishing, bird hunting, deer hunting. There's just a lot of great public access points, even though for the state, we don't have a ton of public access compared to some places out west, with us being, 97, 98% privately owned ground. The few sections that we do have available for public, it's been kind of interesting to see how hard the DNR has been working and the local county conservation groups to just get boots on the ground and provide us with great access for the little bit that we do have. So that's kind of me in a nutshell for the most part, and kind of what we've been focusing on the last few years.
And I don't know about you, but here in Marion County, I feel like year after year, I'm seeing more and more pheasants. Just for instance, last October, I had an early muzzleloader tag this year for deer hunting. And the first day I went on early muzzleloader season, it was almost 90 degrees that day. It was absolutely horrible. And I was overlooking this kind of this bottom, I guess. There was a little creek that went through it, and it was kind of surrounded by some taller grasses and stuff. Getting close to, to go time, you know how it is, kind of that last 20 minutes of legal shooting light. Still as could be, no wind or anything. And I kept hearing what I thought was a deer getting closer to me. And I was just set up on the ground. And so couldn't really see anything. I didn't have a good visual. And I heard the noise get really close, probably within like 5 or 10 yards. And I'm like, well, it's not a deer, because I feel like I would have seen it at this point.
Sure enough. That close.
Yeah, sure enough. A pheasant flushed out right next to me. It scared the crap out of me. It was something, but he took off.
They always do, even with pointing dogs. It still surprises you when you walk in and kick. It's something's going to be there, and you still get startled.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I've been hearing them cackling and stuff all evening, and then to have one walk up that close, that was a pretty cool experience.
That is neat. And that doesn't surprise me at all, because they just putz around out there. And if they don't know you're there, they just do their thing. And then all of a sudden, bam, there you are, and they jump.
Are the numbers looking pretty good, kind of the areas you've been this year or this past season?
Yeah, so it definitely overall statewide, it looks like we were doing pretty good. I traveled a decent amount this year, really all across the state from east to west. I'm out of the Cedar Rapids area, so I'm more on the eastern side of the state. But from what I saw, really seemed like bird numbers were pretty solid this year. A lot of young birds this year, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I did notice, which is common year after year. But as the season continued on, you get into late November, mid-December, and obviously we're just kind of left with those educated birds out there. The young, dumb ones, so to speak, have been shot and taken off the landscape for the most part. And you're at that point in the season, December, you're chasing those educated roosters, which can make it a little harder, but they're definitely still out there. And then we've had, not to get ahead of ourselves, but just speaking of the weather, we've had really good weather until this last week. We got kind of dumped on with snow, but that's all. And then the frigid cold minus temperatures, but that's all going to go away here in the next few days. So, knock on some wood here that things continue good for the rest of the winter. I think those birds are going to be sitting really good come spring. Now, what I've been told in the past, though, is, winter definitely does have some play into what that hatch is going to look like this next spring. But the big thing is once they start nesting, we want to make sure to not have too much rain. We all want rain. We know the farmers need rain at the right times, which is all really important with our state being really ag focused. But if we can also have kind of, a decent spring with not a lot of flooding and things like that, I think fall of 2025, we're going to be looking really good.
I didn't realize that you could educate roosters. So like, what do you mean by that? Is it kind of like a whitetail buck? If he wins you or something, then he kind of avoids that area the next time?
So pheasants can tend to come back. They don't have like a huge travel area, but when I say educated, what can happen over time is once they've, kind of that first flush of the season is your best chance to get on that bird. And then once they've had a dog behind them, a dog chasing them, a pheasant naturally will run first. And then eventually when it gets to a point where it can't feel that it can escape from running, it will flush and fly at that point. But their preference is to run. So when I say educated, they get really smart really quick. They start to learn when dogs are out there, hunters are out there. And that's why it can help to try to be more quiet at the truck, enter the field, maybe a different direction, especially hunting public land, because a lot of guys park at the parking lot, walk that field the exact same way, and then get in their car and leave. So that's kind of the big thing is after they've flushed a few times, they figure out the game and they understand what's going on. So that's when you got to get more creative, and you can still pin them down. Good dog work is always important with the pheasants, because if you're out there without a dog, you can do it. But with them wanting to run, unfortunately, they'll just run circles around you and never flush. And then you'll leave that field and be like, oh, that kind of sucked. There were no birds in there. Well, little did you know there were birds in there. They're just smart and have figured out how to survive. And let's be honest, we're coming into their house where they live all the time. So they know all the little escape routes and all the quirks of the land. So they definitely have the upper hand, as they should in that regards. But that's the biggest thing is once they get that hunting pressure, especially on public ground, it can be tough to pin them down. Now on private, if it gets hunted 2-3 times a year, you can even some of those mature birds, you can get them to sit real tight early December, mid-December. But yeah, if they've had any pressure, I don't know what it is. It seems like they learn real quick, especially the roosters. I don't know if it doesn't make sense to me, but I've always said it's like the hens know they can't get shot at because the roosters take off running and they'll flush 100 yards ahead of you, once they're educated. And those hens will still sit tight and you'll have a nice, beautiful point on a dog. And then you kick it up and it's a hen. And of course, you can't shoot here in Iowa on hens unless you're at a game farm. So that's kind of the name of the game, though.
They're sneaky little suckers, aren't they?
They are. And they're really, really smart birds. We tease all the time. You see them walking down the road and they'll about walk up to your car in the off season. Sometimes, depending on the area, they're just dumb birds. But when it comes to survival or fight or flight, they know what to do to survive for the most part.
Now, whenever so you talked about some of those educated ones and maybe they don't flush out and they'll just take off running. Have you ever, I don't know, mixed it up and went without a dog and just tried by yourself?
I haven't. The biggest thing that I've done is sometimes I will try to, I'll take a dog and leash the dog up. I don't really heel train my dogs that's where they walk right by your side without a leash. And so there are a few situations where I've gone into fields, the birds have blown up and I haven't even had a chance. So it's like, all right, let's let them settle down for a few days and try to get back in there. And sometimes we'll kind of take like a mowed path and keep the dog tight on a leash and try to be quiet and then try to get maybe to the back corner and then push it back towards the vehicle to try to give myself an advantage. But It's the key with the dogs, at least that I've found, is sometimes you get to a point where it's like, should we go left or right? And that's where they really can come in and help. Is they have the nose. They're the ones that know where those birds are going. I can't smell them or see them. So you definitely could put a dog up, but I just think you'd just kind of be looking for a needle in a haystack at that point. But it can be done, and there are guys that do it. Now, growing up in the 90s, my dad and I, there was a time period that we went through and we didn't have bird dogs, and bird numbers were high enough where you could go walk some ditches or some old railroads and things like that and just drum up birds yourself. And you can still do that today. It just is a little harder.
I feel like I'm always a magnet to them, and it's always out of season. It's always during deer season or turkey season or something like that,
That's how it is. That's how it is. When I'm deer hunting, or I should say when I'm turkey hunting, that's when I've had deer literally about walk right up to me, sitting on the ground, like you explained with that pheasant. And it's always out of season when any of that stuff happens. Or you're out turkey hunting in the spring and you're hearing the roosters do their little caw trying to mate, and it's like, where were you this last fall?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, I guess I'll put a pin and hope for the best when it comes time.
And I do that a lot in the spring.
Oh,
when you hear or see birds, I will drop some pins down and just kind of be like, okay, hey, come back and check this out in the fall and see what happens.
Yeah, it gets almost like pheasant scouting then, kind of in the off season.
Yeah. And they're real vocal in the spring, especially around that April, May, and when turkey season's going. They're out trying to mate just like everything else and those other birds. And you can when you just go out and sit in the timber, it's kind of, as Brent, through deer hunting, it's crazy. You never know what you're going to see, whether a squirrel about jumps on your head because you're in camo, or a pheasant walks in on you, or whatnot. So it's kind of a cool place to be in the spring, the woods.
Yeah. No doubt about that, man. So we're talking here with Nick Martin on the podcast, the Iowa Bird Chaser. So this past pheasant season, what counties did you hit up this year? I know you've been trying to get to 99 total counties for the state. Been working on it for some time now. What were some of your top spots this year, top counties?
Yeah, so I had some pretty good luck over around the Greene County area, kind of northwest of Des Moines, that what I kind of call central western Iowa. So you get a little bit north of Des Moines, you get a little bit more west, and they just have a lot more ground out there, a lot more habitat for the birds. And that middle to western side of the state, it's no secret, it's always been popular for bird hunters, especially that northwest region, Clay County area. No hot spot in there. It's always dark black on the roadside count map, but it also gets a lot of pressure because the guys see the roadside map of the counts, and they know that there's high bird numbers up there. But again, without good dog work or being creative as a hunter, it can still be tough. So even though there's more birds, it doesn't necessarily make it easier. But, and then as you get on the eastern side of the state, we just have less habitat. It's more ag focused over here, more fence row to fence row farming, not a lot of drainage ways, or ditches are getting mowed, which is all understandable. I get farmers got to do what they got to do to keep their things looking nice and maximize their profit, because land is not cheap here in the state. But yeah, overall across the state, it just that western side's was doing pretty good this year. And then down in southern Iowa, those bottom two tiers of counties directly off Missouri, pretty much across the entire state, you can get into quail. So we got into a decent amount of quail this year. I haven't hunted quail a ton specifically in Iowa before, so I thought it was a pretty solid season. Personally, I don't have a lot to compare that to, but down in southern Iowa, there was not too many fields that I remember. I mean, maybe on one hand, I could count maybe 2 or 3 fields that we didn't at least flush quail. Now, as you get further south, I did find that it does seem like the pheasant numbers drop off a little bit for whatever reason, but there were definitely still quail around, late December, early January. We'd move maybe one hen in a day, but 3 to 4 coveys of quail we were pushing, and that's pretty decent for Iowa. We're never going to be like Kansas quail hunting, but you can definitely find opportunities for mixed bags when you get mixed bag hunting when you get into that southern portion of Iowa as well.
Any other hunting stories from the past year outside of pheasants? Did you do any deer or turkey hunting? For me personally, I took my first ever public land buck with a bow this year, so that was pretty cool. I didn't know if you got out and did much hunting in other seasons.
Yeah, so this last I actually last December 2023, I had ankle surgery. So that kind of put me out for spring turkey season last year. I'll be itching to get back out this April and May. I'll be back in the turkey timber to get back on some birds, hopefully in that regards. And that's been about it this last year. We traveled quite a bit out to Montana, South Dakota, for different, sharp tail grouse, things, um, Hungarian partridge and different upland species. That's kind of been the big focus this last year.
How close are you to getting to that 99 county total? Are you getting pretty close to your goal?
Yeah, so I'm trying to do 10 every season to stay on track with basically a 10-year plan. We're 5 years in, and I'm about 4 counties ahead of where I need to be, which feels really good because this is a massive project. It's not something you can even do in a couple years if you want to. And from what I've seen, if numbers continue to trend that the way that they are, I would think in the next 3 to 4 years I could get it completed. We're really starting to make some really good headway on some of those tougher counties, focusing on those late October, excuse me, early November, and trying to knock a bird down in some of those tougher counties on the eastern side or southern portions of the state, and then kind of saving some of that western side of the state towards the end. So hopefully, it would be a little easier according to, habitat and bird numbers. So that's kind of the plan and the thought. So hopefully in the next 3 to 4 years, 5 years, worst case scenario, we'll have that all wrapped up. But to this last season, that was kind of the big milestone and big story or memory that I'll remember is getting the bird that put me officially over the halfway mark to 99. And that's a big accomplishment in its own because, like I said, it's going to take quite some time to do this. So to know, I'm continuing to make headway and we've made it halfway and now we're officially on the downhill slide. That's super exciting. I mean, I would be lying to you if there were days I told you it's like, can you really do this? But we're trying, and we're doing it.
Man, that's awesome. I bet you've been getting a lot of cardio then over the last
Yeah.
5 years. That's a lot of public land you've been going to.
Yeah. Well, and admittedly, I damaged my ankle just from continuing to push myself and continuing to hunt. That actually happened during hunting. And so, yeah, I don't know if I'm committed or crazy some days, but definitely out there putting, 20,000 plus steps in a day and definitely covering some ground. And that's public land hunting. And I really enjoy it. And I enjoy being behind the dogs and challenging them as well and seeing what they can drum up. So it's definitely not for everybody, but still just having a goal. That's something I've talked about on other podcasts before is, challenge yourself this fall, challenge yourself to go out and maybe get 10 counties and just see what it's like, or maybe even 5 in hunting public land, and just kind of put yourself out there, challenge yourself as a hunter, and you'll be surprised. You grow when you put yourself, I don't want to say under pressure, but when you challenge yourself like that, it's kind of fun to see how you handle it and how you grow through it and deal with the adversity. I've definitely learned so much as a hunter over the last 5 years. And keep in mind, I'm a lifelong hunter, but really doing a deep dive into these public pieces, it really gives me an understanding of what these birds are doing, how they're using the landscape, and how to be a better hunter and be successful with that knowledge.
No, man, that's awesome. I'm sure that's inspiring. You probably get a lot of people fired up to where they're like, man, I want to go check out some of these grounds. Like, it's out there. Some of them are close by. Like, I'm just going to go do it.
I hope so. I do know there is a gal in Iowa. Her name is Ray. She heard my story and she's not an upland hunter, but she really likes to fish. So she's trying to catch a fish in every county in Iowa. And when I checked in with her around the Christmas time, she was at like 70 something, which she can ice fish and fish in the summer. So that's year round. So she can do that a little quicker. But that was pretty cool when I heard of that story, of her wanting to do that with fishing. So it doesn't just have to be specific to upland hunting. There's a lot of ways you can challenge yourself as a outdoorsman or outdoors woman.
That's awesome. Well, hey, man, thanks for coming on here. I think it's been a little over a year since we last had you, and it's just always good to catch up and hear how things are going when you're out on the road.
Well, no, like I said at the beginning, Brent, I always appreciate our conversations and appreciate you having me back on. And hopefully some people can pick up some tips through this short little spiel here and be better hunter this fall as they get out.
Yeah, good luck to you, and we'll stay in touch with you. All right.
That sounds good, Brent.
Awesome. That's Nick Martin, the Iowa bird chaser. You can give him a follow on social media. We always appreciate you joining us here on the Outdoor Adventures podcast. You can listen to the audio portion wherever you get your podcast. And also, these video episodes are posted to the Brownfield Ag News YouTube channel. I'm Brent Barnett with Brownfield. Have a great weekend.